All right, it's 9:30, and I know we have a tight schedule at Stir Trek here today, so I'm going to get moving. Just a couple housekeeping things just real quick. I'm going to try to keep the talk around 45 minutes, just so that we can give you guys time for questions and then have folks be able to hop out and have those hallway conversations. I think conferences like this, the most important part is those hallway conversations. So just if I'm talking, because I can talk for 2 hours and we hit that 45 mark, wave your hands, kind of help me with that, but I'm going to try to keep it around 45 minutes. The other things, I want to try to keep this interactive as much as I can. I got 2 huge lights in front of me, so I can see folks in the front up here pretty good. I can see folks in the middle, but if you're on the edges, I might not see you right away. So raise your hand, jump up and down, maybe move a little bit if I have some questions for you. So can everybody hear me okay? All right, can you hear me okay? Got a nice mic going on. I got some slides to talk about. So thanks for coming. My name is Jeff McWherter. I'm the COO at GravityWorks Design in Michigan. We're a web development company based in Lansing, Michigan. We've been around for 17 years. We're about 25 people. I founded the company many years ago, and about 5 years ago went through an acquisition where we sold it to Michigan Farm Bureau. So we're in Columbus, so I know there's some insurance folks in the audience, I'm sure. My career, all of my life, has been working at consulting companies, smaller type organizations, and with an acquisition to Michigan Farm Bureau. Michigan Farm Bureau is a $1 billion company, so I've got a very unique look into corporate life now as well. So lots of things. So today I want to talk about managing the human side of technology. And like I said, I run a digital agency. We've worked on hundreds of projects over the years, and I can tell you the hardest part that we deal with is not the technology, it's always the people, whether it's employees, whether it's our clients. And I really want to talk to folks about some lessons that I've learned along the way. Before I dive in too deep, something brought you to this talk. And I want to make sure folks are getting as much as they can out of this talk. And does anybody want to share what interests you? Why did you want to come to this talk? Something that you're looking to get out of the talk. Okay, we got one in the front here.
Still a new manager. Just passed my 1-year anniversary of being a manager.
Okay. 1-year anniversary of being a manager. Let's learn about that. Awesome. Yeah, let's clap for that, right? Anybody else want to share? All right, well, let's hop into it. Well, that was a great question because the very first slide is manager versus leader. And so one of the things I want to talk about with this is a lot of times in organizations, folks are promoted to being a manager because they are good at their job. They're good at being a programmer, so therefore they're going to be great at managing other people that are programmers. And when you say it out loud, it's kind of ridiculous. What skills do you have as a manager? You're a great programmer. That does not make you a great leader, a great manager. So we're going to get into that in the talk a little bit. But talking a little bit about manager versus leader, one thing I really like to say about that is a manager at McDonald's does not try to sell spaghetti when it's slow and see how it works. A manager protects the system where a leader evolves the system. A manager will say, "This is how we do things." A leader will say, "Is this still how we should do things?" Some folks make that transition quickly from what you're good at, what you went to school at, what you learned about a programmer, to that manager position, and then ultimately into the leadership position. How many people work at what you would consider a corporation? Large corporations where you have directors, you have managers. Okay, we have a good portion of folks in the room. My wife has always been in the corporate life. She works at a credit union. She has a manager. She has team leaders. She has directors. She has VPs, executive VPs, just like all these acronyms and all these things. Where I grew up with we just want to get the work done, right? We just need to get this project out. We need to get this done. There wasn't a lot of hierarchy with what we had. So when you go into the corporations, you get this director level, and it really starts to question what is the role? We talk about middle management. What is the role of the director? And at Gravity Works, we always say, our project managers are gatekeepers. They gatekeep the projects. They help the success of the projects. So our project managers are not paper pushers, just working in Asana or Jira, kind of closing tasks and whatnot. They're actually testing. They're actually building. They're actually providing value. And it's not to say that other types of project managers or other managers aren't providing value. It's just there's a lot of orchestrating. But to me, managers and leaders need to provide value. They need to be gatekeepers. They can't just be the typical middle manager that you hear. They have to provide value. Another thing is we start to manage people and we turn into leaders. We really need to start thinking about the things that we value. We value time. Do you value relationships? And thinking about this, I started playing Magic the Gathering, the trading card game, many years ago, 93, 94. And I've gone through phases in my life where it's just cardboard. Why do these cards cost so much money? The value isn't inherited, it's just assigned. So we think about other things that we have inside a business that gets assigned as well. Revenue gets tracked. Relationships don't. Deadlines get tracked. Burnout doesn't. Output gets tracked. Growth doesn't. So it's important that we invest in people. It's important that we invest in these relationships. If you don't invest in it, you won't value it, and neither will anybody else. I like to say this to my team. People don't remember the deadline. If you miss the deadline by a day, by a week, they remember how you handled it. They remember the relationships around it. If you tried to deploy something to production, it didn't go well, you rolled it back. A week from now, management might be grumpy, the client might be grumpy about it, but it's all about that moment, about how you handle that moment, how you portray yourself, how you value those relationships. The other thing is our community as software developers, designers, builders, it's not that big. So if you're working at some place and you get a reputation of being difficult to work with, maybe 10 years from now you're going to be working at the same place and you go to a different place and you don't get hired for that reputation. So how you value things are extremely important. So a quote from Aristotle, "Why water is vital for all life is cheap, while diamonds are expensive even though we can live without them." So misaligned values can create bad leadership decisions. If you only value output, you burn people out. If you only value speed, your quality drops. If you only value cost, your culture erodes. As leaders, people are looking to us to assign that value, whether we realize it or not. This is something I talk to my team a lot about as well. If somebody looks at your calendar, would they agree with you with what your values are? What's on your calendar? Is it all meetings? Is it from project to project? Is there professional development time inside of there? Do you value professional development? Do you value one-on-one relationships with your employees, with your peers, those sort of things? The next item is what gets measured gets managed. But also what gets measured also gets prioritized, whether it should or not. We talk a lot about this when we think about Google Analytics. Being a web company, we talk about this concept we call line go up disease, and folks want to see that traffic go up. And if it's not a line going up, they start questioning, why is that line not going up? And We then have to switch and start having conversations about vanity metrics versus meaningful metrics. And what is meaningful? If the line goes up, we feel good. If the line goes down, we panic. We end up managing the graph instead of managing the business, managing the actual thing that gets managed. Instead of asking, did the line go up? Ask it, did it move us closer to what actually matters? So that just doesn't need to be metrics about our application, how many users, how many database hits, whatever the analytics are that you manage. It's managing people, and it's metrics around people. There's lots of tools out there, and I see it more in the corporate life. I see a once-a-year survey that gets sent out to say, how are we doing? And then sometimes the items get acted on, sometimes they don't. In smaller organizations, I see more real-time feedback. Smaller clients like GravityWorks, or smaller organizations like GravityWorks and some of the clients that we work with, use teams like Office Vibe to send daily surveys out to get a pulse of how their teams are doing. GravityWorks, we have it divided up into just our teams, our back-end team, front-end team, our managers, front-end project managers, and UX team. We manage lots of different things about feedback and alignment, and we have different numbers on it. And it's not really about the number went up, the number went down. It's just a health check. Okay, it doesn't look like we're doing great on feedback. What can we do better about that? Or is there a reason around it? So the next thing I observed about managing people, managing clients, managing relationships, and owning a business for many years, the sales side of it as well, is you need to learn how to move on. And one of my favorite quotes from media, from the show Ted Lasso, is, you know what the happiest animal in the world is? It's a goldfish, because it has a 10-second memory. Moving on is not ignoring it. It's not pretending it didn't happen. It's just, you don't want to be stuck with something. And I think moving on is very healthy. I think it helps with careers. It helps with relationships. And I mentioned the sales side. Sometimes I get stuck in it. You pour all this time into this proposal. You think you're a great fit. Then you get called in, you have a call with the client thinks that you're great, and then all of a sudden you realize that you don't win the project. Then you don't win the project, and the competitor was the exact same price. You learn that the competitor outsources to another country when you're in the same city and you're bringing jobs to the city for that. And I shake my fist, and that's what I do is I shake my fist. It's like, oh my God, we would have been perfect for this, and what you did was not the best decision. But if I hold on to, excuse me, if I hold on to that, I'm not going to be able to move on to that next client. I'm not going to be able to do a better proposal and actually win the work that we need to have. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to be mad, but you need to set a limit. You need to move forward intentionally. If you don't move on, your team won't move on either. We're talking about managing people. And when you're making that transition from a worker to a manager to a leader, it's not just about your output anymore. It's about the team's output. If you hold on to your mistakes, they become the culture. They become what your organization is. If you bring up old issues, people stop taking risks. So it's important to move on, have conversations. What can we do better? And be better. So let's talk about Ted Lasso. Is there anybody who has not watched Ted Lasso? There's a few people that haven't watched Ted Lasso. I recommend watching Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is one of those shows that I've watched from seasons to seasons, and I get something out of it every single time. Where I am in my life, it's different when I watch it. It can pull me out from being depressed into being happy. It can help me in my personal life. It can help me with all kinds of things. I'm a big media person. I watch a lot of TV. That's how I decompress. And Ted Lasso, I mean, just the summary without spoiling very much of it, is he's an American football coach who is going through some family issues. He goes over to the UK and is coaching a football team for European football, and hilarity ensues. There's all kinds of leadership roles inside of there. There's just all kinds of neat stuff that happens inside of that. Really with Ted Lasso isn't soft, he's intentional. And there's a difference between being soft and intentional. And I think I'm going to take a break there just to kind of throw this out there, because I started seeing myself start to do this. When we hire a new employee, my team kind of giggles to themselves and they laugh and they say, how long is it going to be between Jeff crying and the new employee getting freaked out? I'm a very emotional person, and there's a couple slides later here I'm probably going to tear up or choke up a little bit. And that's taken me many years to get comfortable with. Now I can cry in front of everybody and I just really don't care. But it freaks people out if you don't warn them. They're like, what is this dude up here tearing up about? Just a warning here with a couple things. Ted Lasso makes me tear up. So going back to the media, we have a lot of portrayal of leaders and managers in the media. And I mentioned I watch a lot of shows, and I think that our society is reflected a lot in what we see in television and what we're told to socially accept. You have leaders like Mr. Burns, who leads through fear. And one of the things that I think a lot about is there's an episode where Homer leaves the power plant to go, I don't remember exactly what it was, maybe he was an entrepreneur, but he got another job for a while. And I'm going to tear up on this one. He has to come crawling back because whatever he was doing failed. He had to literally crawl through a door to Mr. Burns, this little door, ask for his job back. And Mr. Burns puts something in front of his cube that says, "You will work here forever." And what Homer does is he puts, tearing up, pictures of his family there that says, "I do it for you." And I think there's a lot of lessons in that one. And the big lessons is a failure. If you fail, it doesn't mean that you can't fail again. You go back to that job, you do what you need to do, and then you try again. The other thing is, if you're at a job that you don't like, you can change or you can change, meaning you can try to change the job that you're at, the role, promotions, different things, or you can literally change the job. So don't feel like you're stuck in the same job forever. The other manager that we have up there is we have Michael Scott, the accidental manager who wants to be liked more than he's respected. And I think that we start seeing these things. And I've seen that some of my management styles have, for good and for bad, have come from media. So I also think it's important to mention a double standard that we have in women in this role, not only in media, but in the workplace. A man is decisive where a woman is difficult. A man is direct where a woman is a bitch. There's a reality in leadership, especially for women, where the exact same behavior is judged differently. So moving it back to Ted Lasso, I live in East Lansing, Michigan, Michigan State University, and I get to go to all kinds of cool sporting events. You got the big ones like football and basketball, but I get to see gymnastics, I get to see volleyball, softball, and it's a great place to raise a family. I have an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old daughter, and we get to go to these things, and we get to see the coaches. And that's what I do during these events is I look at the coaches. Are they a yelly coach? Are they somebody who brings people in? And MSU has a new volleyball coach, and she's amazing. And she reminds me a lot of Ted Lasso with her philosophy. So I try to go to anything I see where she's speaking, where she's coaching, so I can just watch that interaction. As managers, that's what we're doing. As leaders, that's what we're doing. We're coaching a team. And there's a lot of things from sports coaching that we can pull into business. There are so many coaching frameworks out there. There's books after books after books. When I was in college, many moons ago, I took a class, Principles of Coaching. And I took the class because it was a 400 level class with 4 credits, and it was kinesiology, and it was going to be a breeze. And it was easy, but I got a lot out of it that I didn't think that I really would. How many folks have seen the Pyramid of Success? John Wooden, a couple people have seen it. Famous UCLA basketball coach. He has this pyramid about traits. And the pyramid isn't about winning, it's about becoming. It's about becoming better people. And that's a lot with Ted Lasso. He makes a comment in the show that he doesn't care if the team wins or loses. He wants to build his players up. He wants the players to be better people. The pyramid is structured like a building. You start with foundational character traits at the bottom and build upwards to peak performance at the top. So this is just one of many types of coaching styles, of ways to help build teams. And there's lots of references in society. You can kind of see in the upper corner above Nate's head over the calendar over there, the pyramid of success. So other people are seeing it, other people are using it as well. You don't get a medal for last place. So this came from my youngest daughter at a cheer competition a couple years ago. Do we have any cheer families out here, competitive cheer families?
I used to cheer.
You used to cheer, okay. Competitive cheer is wild. It is a travel sport. It goes from April to April every year. It is a year-long sport. We just ended the end of the year competition. I have a slide here that's actually kind of cool. But you go to these competitions, you compete, there's different levels, there's different skills, and it is wild. My oldest has been doing it for 8 years, and she's 14. And this was her last year doing it. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But a few years ago, and the travel, like I said, is wild. Live in Michigan, but we've traveled to Georgia, Texas. We go to Florida every year. This particular one, I believe, was in Tennessee, where after the event, my daughter came up to me, and normally they have a medal on. They all get a medal, and she came, and I said, "Rachel, where's your medal?" Thinking that she lost it. She was younger at the time. She was probably like 7 at the time. And she said, "Dad, you don't get a medal for last place." And it really kind of hit me about the whole competition and participation medals. And you can go down all kinds of paths, and our participation trophies good for the building the next generation. I mean, there's so much research, there's so much stuff on there. But that particular one just really hit me, like, you don't get a medal for last place. She was cognizant that they came in last place. She was cognizant that you don't get rewarded for coming into last place. But I was kind of like, but what happened? You had fun with your team. You got to go to this water park. You got to do this cool go-karting thing. You got to do all of this. It's not just about this competition and what medal you got. So really, when you're managing people, it's about celebrating the wins. You launch something and you have to roll it back. There's some wins inside of there. You work on a really tough project. There's wins in there. You have to find those wins. And this is something we used to do many years ago when we're fully distributed now. We're fully virtual. We don't have an office anymore, but we used to have an office. It was in Old Town Lansing. We had a river. We had all these great restaurants, and we had a cake place. And when we would launch a website, we would take the mock-up of the website to the cake place and ask them to build a cake in the theme of the website. So you can see the website on the left, the colors, and then this is the client was Piper and Gold, and this is the cake that we got. We were launching like 2 websites a week, so that didn't last very long because we always had stale cake inside the fridge. And we started to say, is cake the best thing? Should we be eating healthier? Should we be doing something different here? But that's a cool cake for something like this. And if they were a local client, we'd invite them over. But the point is celebrating those wins, whether they're big wins, little wins, whatever. When you're a team, celebrating those things are important. As a leader, as a manager, and just as a human, I think it's extremely important to think about accountability. And I think it's important that you need to foster an environment to support accountability. So the story for this one, this was my first job out of college. I was probably 22 years old. I'm a hotshot programmer, and this is 2021, 2022. And what the job was is I was writing IVR systems for credit unions. So you pick up your phone and it was a voice system. You pick up your phone and you say, what is the balance in my checking account? My job was, part of my duties was I had to make sure the sales demo was up all the time. Not write like an uptime monitoring system, not anything automated. We're going back to 2001 here, 2002. Nothing automated about it. I literally had to pick up my phone and call this thing every morning, call it at noon. I had these times I had to call it. Well, I didn't do it one evening. I don't know why I didn't do it. I forgot. I probably just forgot. I was probably doing something with my wife, doing something. I forgot I didn't do it. So I came in and I had the worst boss in the world. I have story after story. This boss told me that he was going to break my fingers at one point. This is the kind of boss that we're dealing with. So he pulls me in the office. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. He pulls me in the office and he says, the demo system's down. You didn't check it last night. And of course I felt bad about it because I made a mistake. He came back and then proceeded to tell me, well, we lost a big sale. We had a client that was supposed to be using that, and we lost a huge sale because it was there. So then I feel even worse. I'm like, oh man, this is horrible. So this company is probably about 70 people. You don't talk to the CEO at this company. I don't talk to any of the C-level people. I'm young in my career. I don't know the importance of that networking and stuff. But somehow I mustered enough courage to go over to the CEO and tell him, I want to take responsibility for the demo account being down. I apologize that you guys lost the sale. I just feel horrible about it. And he looked at me and his exact words were, what the hell are you talking about? So he had no idea. There was no sale. It was just this bad manager making me feel bad because I didn't do what I was supposed to do. But I look back on that as a young kid starting his career, shaking in my boots, going and talking to this CEO that's managing this large company and taking accountability for something that is really bad. So I'm probably going to cheer up at this one. End of the year cheer competition. We were down in Florida for it, and my youngest, when you have kids, they're hungry, they're tired, and it's not just with kids, but it's with people. If behavior's different, there's something going on. And with kids, it's a little easier than adults. Kids are hungry, they're stressed out about something. You can kind of see it. And my youngest was just having a hard time, and she's going just not wanting to do anything. And we're like, Rachel, why don't you sit down? Why don't you have something to eat? Why don't we just not watch TV? Let's just hang out for a little while. And she's getting all rude. She's getting mad. And I think our parenting style is just very much, what can we do to help? Very much like my management style. It's not yelling. We're not yelly parents. We're not yelly coaches. Just what can we do to help you? What do you need? And she's just kind of going off. So she ends up going off into the other room, taking a little while. And then she comes back after about an hour and she looks at me and she said, Dad, that behavior was unacceptable. I apologize for that. I shouldn't have happened. This is an 11-year-old taking accountability. I'm like, proud dad moment right there. Number one, I didn't yell at my kid. And number two, she's taking accountability. So this is a fun one, cognitive readiness. So cognitive readiness is how you show up when things don't go as planned. And I think a lot about this as what training do you have as a manager? What training do you have as a leader? How did you get that training? Where did it come from? So with cognitive readiness, we think about things like critical thinking, problem solving, adaptability, emotional regulation, resilience, learning. I mean, there's just so much inside of this that we can work on and do. And what training do we get? We don't get a lot of this training. Where do you go for training? A lot of it is experience. And I don't think that's great for new managers. I don't think that's great for leaders. One of my first management positions, and this is a story that I don't want to tell in front of a huge room, but I think it's important. I'm coming off of working from that bad boss, where my role model was somebody who told me he was going to break my fingers, told me he was going to send me home for writing on a whiteboard crooked, just having this horrible experience with this guy, to working at a company where I became responsible for other developers. And then you have the media and how managers are in the media with Michael Scott and some of these other people. And I think it probably was like from the IT Crowd or something, one of those older shows. But we had a developer who definitely was neurodiverse. And I tried to accommodate him as much as I could, but a lot of times what he would do is he'd walk in my office and he'd just stand there. He wouldn't say anything, he'd just stand there. And you'd have to look up and say, "Can I help you? What do you need?" And I was having a really bad day one day, and he walked into the office and he was just standing there. And I looked up and I said, "Can you do me a huge favor? Can you shut the door?" And he went to shut the door and I said, "From the other side." I still feel so bad about that interaction that I had. He didn't deserve that. I was just having a bad day, and I lashed out and I did something dumb. I haven't done something dumb like that. I've done some dumb things since then, but I haven't done anything like that. So I think it's important to know about these things and know kind of how to think about them, have the tools to work with them. And I mentioned, how do we train? How do we get better at doing what we do? And I think it's a lot of books. I do a lot of reading. I'm a big reader. I like to read. Books like Crucial Conversations and Radical Candor about conversations. We learn from those on how to get better, and I think that's at that level is a lot. It's coming to sessions like this, hearing from people who have experiences and talking in the hallway with folks. Extremely important. So this quote kind of goes along with the cognitive readiness. And it's been attributed to Mike Tyson. I've heard it to other people as well. Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. Going into that whole concept about how do you learn, how do you know what these things are called? Oh wow, I've been dealing with this for a while. This is like actually a thing. My example with this is succession planning. So we have this concept of succession planning about what happens when somebody leaves. What happens when you move a developer off of a project? There's this thing called succession planning that has lots of information on it if you Google it. If you know what it's called succession planning. My story that I always called it was the Justice League Batman thing is what I used to call it. And what that is I used to talk to my employees early on that there's a Justice League cartoon, one of the cartoons out there, and Batman has a contingency plan. He knows that Superman's weakness is kryptonite and Green Lantern's is this. And he has all of these things written down. So we need to be like Batman and have a plan in case something happens. That's called succession planning. And I felt dumb in, like, one of my employees at some, like, I'm like going on this big rant about this, and somebody looked at me and said, "You mean succession planning?" Like, yeah, I guess that's what that is. Yeah, that sure is. And then you look it up and there's just so much information about it. And it just goes, it just goes on to, you don't know what you don't know. Bad boss used to say that a lot. So I did get some good things from bad boss, but bad boss used to say that a lot. You don't know what you don't know. So coming to events and learning things like this and learning that this guy's up here talking about the Justice League when it was called succession planning is fun. As a leader, as a manager, your output is not measured on your output, it's measured on your team's output. And your job is to build the best team that you possibly can, make them, knock down barriers for them, and do what you can do to make them as productive as possible. If you're on time, you're late goes to something my band director said when I was in high school. He always used to say, if you're on time, you're late. And I took that to life. I tell it to my kids all the time. And we started working with the Michigan Band and Orchestra Association many years ago. And I thought this was something specific to my band director. It was something that he came up with, and that it was just a special thing that I had between my band director and his students that he worked with. And somehow I was talking with the client, and it came up, and the client came back and said, every single band director says that. And it like broke my heart because I thought this was something that was just special. But it just is, everybody's busy. And everybody, you need to set an example even if you're busy. You need to set boundaries. So I'm sure everybody's calendar, let's go to yesterday. And that does not look great. That's the wrong screen. Kinda. That's going to be hard. Anyway, I'll go back to the presentation. My calendar's booked, right? My calendar's got thing after thing after thing. It's got double bookings inside of there. But I think as a manager and a leader, you need to make sure that even though you look that busy, you need to be available for your people. And I do it through one-on-ones. My direct reports, I have a one-on-one with them every week. And then I say at least once a month, I say, is there anybody in your team that would benefit from having a one-on-one with me? And we do those once a month. It just depends on the individual. And I try to keep those as much as we can. And sometimes they're just a, hey, do you want to meet? Hey, do you want to chat? And it's a, no, I'm too busy, let's move on. Having time to be able to do that is extremely important. So that goes to the projects as well. Using Gantt charts, putting in buffers. We know that we've done this for 25 years. I know when you present a design to a client and they say that they're going to get it back to you in 2 weeks, they're not going to get it back to you in 2 weeks. So you have to put buffer in there. And even though they were late with getting you to the approval for the design that we can't start development on, they're still going to want that end date. So making sure that you're being intentional, making sure you have buffer inside of there is important. All right, this is my favorite quote ever, and it's a Star Trek quote. Star Trek versus Star Wars. Who's a Trekkie? Who's a Star Trek fan? Okay, not as many people. Who's Star Wars? Okay, more Star Wars than Star Trek. Okay. Okay, so this is a quote from Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Does anybody know where I'm going with this? Any of the Trekkies? Yep, okay. It's possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness, that is life. Favorite quote out of all time. I love this quote. It can be used in so many different ways for so many different things. Now this is probably where I'm going to cheer up here. So, end of the year cheer competition was 2 weeks ago, Florida. Oldest has been doing cheer 9 years. She's been chasing this end of the year competition. All these years, we switched gyms to go to the super competitive gym. It's an hour away. We drive both girls an hour away, 4 days a week to practice. They're spending so much time in the car, and we've gotten close. 3 years ago, she was 9th place. Last year, they were 4th place, and she had a really bad season this year. They were not doing really hot. We're going into the end of the year cheer competition, and Long and behold, they take second place. And she's so proud. I'm so proud of this. This is awesome. But I have the score at the bottom right there. Her team scored 98.6. The winning team scored 98.7. 0.1 off, which usually if you're in 98, you're going to win. You're going to be up there. But this whole division, all the way to number 7, was 98. So the third place was like 98.4, 98.3. It just kept going down. So lucky. There was no mistakes made. It's subjective. Maybe a toe was pointed. And these are the kind of things that I think a 14-year-old can hold with you for the rest of your life. It drives people to say, you know what, I didn't get first. I'm going back to cheer. I'm going to chase that first place. All kinds of money later, all kinds of time later. What's important to you? It goes back to those values. It goes back to what are you working on? What do you want to be? Who do you want to be? And she's just like, I'm going into high school. I want to focus on my grades, Dad. I don't want it to be an excuse anymore that I have cheer. I want to do marching band. I want to do track. I want to do cross country. And I'm all for that because it's now 10 minutes away. All right, we'll go for probably about 4 more minutes here. Just a couple more items to throw in here. Not the right fit. As a manager, as a leader, you're probably going to have to let somebody go at some point. And I'm going to give this story about the first time I had to let somebody go. I was 15 years old first time I had to let somebody go. My dad was a roofer, and he owned a contracting company, and we roofed. And my dad one day went to go get some supplies. We were working on a house, and I was the guy cleaning up the scrap. I turned the corner, and 2 of his guys were smoking pot. We're going back to the 90s. It's not legal. Whether you're into it or whether you're not, you got to think about it. You're on the job, a construction site where you're up high. You can't get high there. So I looked at the 2 guys, and I said, get the fuck out. Literally, that's exactly what I said. And they looked at each other, and they're like, can he do that? I'm 15 years old. I'm the boss's son. And I said, yeah, I can do that. Get out of here. So they left. And my dad comes back, and he's like, where's so-and-so and so-and-so? And I said, I fired him. And my dad's face got so red. He got so mad. And I told my dad what happened. And he looked at me, and he said, that was a good decision. Because there's insurance implications. There's all kinds of stuff inside of there. So me and my dad stayed late. We finished the job on that site. And then he had new people soon anyway. So letting somebody go isn't always as cut and dry as that. If your kid's getting a C at school, you don't say, we're going to put you up for adoption now in that situation. It's important, and it's extremely important to me that we're helping people. Not everybody's a rock star, and I think that, especially in this industry, we have these things like the rock star rating and things like a rock star programmer can program things 10 times faster than a mediocre person and stuff. But that's not really the reality of life. You have people that are really good programmers, but you also have people that are mediocre programmers, and they get the job done. It just goes a little bit slower. I think that the conversation really needs to switch, and it's managing mediocre people. I think it's how do you get the most out of people, making sure that they're happy, but not pushing them too hard. If somebody doesn't enjoy coming to a conference like Stir Trek, don't force them to come because they're not going to get a lot out of it. Ask them, how do you learn best? Are there books that we can give you? Do you like watching them online better? How do you learn the best? I've had to fire people since, and most of it has come down to personality fits. And people can be toxic. A toxic person can definitely pull down the team. How they treat your clients, how they treat other employees, and I think it's important to have those conversations early on. The book Radical Candor that I mentioned, extremely helpful to help introverted people, to help people just get out what they need to talk about. Just get it out. Let's just move on because it's going to be better down the road. Let's see what I want to talk about in this last minute. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. I think as you can see up here, I've been extremely vulnerable. I think early in my career, I was very much, I have to know everything. I have to come off as knowledgeable for people to follow me. And what I found is people don't follow knowledge, they follow authenticity. If people are being authentic, if they're showing that they don't know everything, it's stronger relations. Skip over communication, understanding change. That's a hard one, and I think that's something that we don't talk to kids a lot about in school. School's very regimented. You have standardized testing, you have expectations. There's not a lot of change that happens. I think sometimes you have friends that leave, maybe you have a teacher that leaves, things like that. But I think that school systems can do better to understand change because that's what life is. That's what projects are. That's what we're dealing with in most situations when projects go south or relationships go south. It's because of change. Don't judge a book by its cover. I think that's extremely important to mention here. I have a big long story about that I'm going to skip, but have faith in people, believe in people. Mental health, I think it's extremely important to talk about mental health at work, talk about it with coworkers, and it's okay to cry in front of people. It's okay to ask for help. We've seen in the last couple years that big organizations have started to talk more about mental health. Why So Sad is a type of shoe, that a skateboarding shoe, and a campaign that Nike came out with a few years ago. I thought that was really cool that Nike did that. And just the last thing to remember is when you're hiring people, when you're working on relationships, focus on potential, not just performance. All right, I left it open for some questions. I have lots of experience with small companies and large corporations now. Happy to answer anything that anybody has, or you guys can scoot out and start those hallway conversations.